Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. The title is Time is the Afterglow of Changing Matter. And I wanted to speak about the relationship human beings have with time, but also how in this, in time, we have personalities. And I have noticed that it's not just ideology, and it's not like a personality arises just from the environment. Emotions can become personified, something the species has maybe overlooked. I would begin by saying that before even the ability to consider time, there required the emergence of a timeless opportunity. Which is the brain. That means the brain emerged, then identity emerged, then this identity began identifying with how matter is changing in space. Hence why I'm calling it time is the afterglow of changing matter. So brains emerged, then watches emerged. And time is really pretty much this whole universe. If one was to comprehend it, I would say you got to look at what the most basic thing is in the universe. And I find that the way we have as a species opened up to it is that it's the relationship of space and matter. This relationship of space and matter, if we were to wonder about human psychology, the space is like the awareness of mind. That means anybody who has a mind right now listening to me, my words are entering the space where your body is in. That means the mind is like the space of the inner realms. So if mind is space, then the body is matter. And when we look at matter, it follows laws of how forces move matter. That means it's this very unique thing that not only there are natural forces that are containing how the universe is, but there are also natural forces changing the way the container is. You know, that means the universe is like a container that's endlessly changing itself. And you know, this even puts the idea of knowledge in a very tricky situation where we're like, wait a minute, in an expanding universe, in a universe where things are changing, we're trying to pinpoint things only through a static reference, through a snapshot of meaning. That means this universe is like a film, but the way we're treating knowledge is like a snapshot photo. It's like a painting on a wall, and that's a grave error, because if you treat it like a painting on the wall, it's as if the matter in the space is too convinced by how it's being matter to study or wonder about the space again. There was something I noticed in Vedanta on a side note, in Vedic thought, that I was like, why was it that the yogis had such a sensitivity, like OCD on material, like illusion. And I came to this conclusion that the very ancient mystical mindset treated the material realm like a demon. Let me explain to you what I mean by this. The idea of imagine you're someone who you feel you're beyond the universe. You look at everything in the universe, and everything in the universe keeps you in the universe. So in some sense, what is keeping you inside the box is like demonic in a strange sense. Now, of course, this is just language. I mean, we don't want to let imagination just go out of control. So what I'm trying to say is, like, it was as if a possession, right? It was as if like a material. It's like objects can own the person. They say the objects you own end up owning you. That's another example of how, like, the material realm is not just possessing, it's possessing the person's abstraction. You can even say, like, this idea, of course, maybe I should have used different wording, but the idea is like some moments they keep you in the moment, some moments move you. And materialism to the yogic mind, which was dynamic beyond individualism, it's like for an immaterial being, you know, being materialistically convinced is like a bit, you know, not natural. It's all language, of course. I mean, ever since the brain emerged, the personhood emerged, and ever since the personhood emerged, the story of exploration of the living world emerged. And time is like a finding. Time is like how we notice change in the realm. There's something, I call it, just like René Descartes, he had this mind-body dualism. I put an effort to establish something of my own similar to that. I call it Mr.Within's inner and outer realmism. Now, if I was to implement the inner and outer realm, it would no longer be choosing two sides. You see, anytime we become aware of duality, the next position is witnessing the duality. So think of it this way, that first there was nothing, then there was a singular thing, then this singular thing, notice it's a singular thing in a world, then there were two things to it. Then the moment we enter duality, the only thing left is a third view. So it's as if like we evolved from a dot then into a regular triangle, and now from that duality we're going to an inverted triangle, you know. I don't know if that was a good from the environment. Like OC left is a third view. I would say from an space. How would I say this? Nothing, something, many things. Okay, nothing. That would be one level. I would say one thing. That would be another level. Two things would be another level. Then many things. And so I think this is the spectrum where the human idea personifies, right? If we were just nothing, there is nothing to identify, right? If we were everything, there's still nothing to identify. Maybe we could identify with the whole thing. But if there is two things, that's where it's the game of time can exist. That means time is 1/4. Our experience of reality and time is 1/4 of the various ways we can be here. Anyways, to move on, we are creatures, we emerge in space. And we have an embodiment, we have a body. This body, as it moves, it tells itself a story, and time is really what generates that story. Without time, there is no separate selfhood. That means if we didn't have time, we wouldn't have an understanding of memory as we have today. We couldn't classify our memories. What that means is if I come excuse me. This is like the difference between the third dimension in science and fourth dimension. The fourth dimension of time, 3 dimensions in space, and the fourth dimension of time. And it's the fourth dimension of time that really allows our memory. So when we experience, look at something 3-dimensional, there is no mind to it. It just is what it is. But it is time, which is the suggestion of, let's say one person goes to, goes to the same park, same spot in the park on Monday, and then Tuesday they go to the same spot, and then Wednesday they go to the same spot, and after a point it becomes something where it's as if it's like when it comes to 3 dimensions, there is no separation. That means before we had time, we couldn't tell the difference between what we did on one day and what we did the other day. It's kind of like Einstein says, we created time, so everything doesn't happen at once. So time is what is allowing us to be a character. It is what is making the all at once into fragments, and these fragments were like jumping from each stepping stone. It's as if our memories are actually vehicles we have lived through as attention, as the presence of attention. And guys, I think it's I talked about the timeless. Now there is 0 viewers. That's the what happens when you talk about emptiness. So 3 dimensions of space, 1 dimension of time. Our personality is kept with time. We don't just focus on what's in there in the space. And of course, it's not that we avoid what's in the space. For example, when it comes to our species and our genetical design, for example, I find that it's like, even if we built up on the idea of the hunter-gatherer psychology, men as being hunters and women as being gatherers, it's as if the attention to the outer realm, how an object is, it's as if men have paid more attention to objects. I feel women have paid attention to more how objects are being subjects. Therefore, an emotional maturity. That means, imagine somebody just going and finding one giant thing, one thing that's hard, getting one hard thing. And imagine from the gatherers being those who they are not looking. So I would say, if we were to move into a multidimensional era, the feminist movement can contribute, but not the feminist movement we see today. You see, not the rendering of the nullification of everything as an equality. You see, there is a subjective value and then there's an objective value. If we take the subject so seriously, we'll become dismissive of the objects. If we take the object so seriously, we become dismissive of the subject, right? So I feel, for example, the feminist movement as an example is taking the object more seriously. That means what I'm trying to say is like it's as if men are objectifying women and women are subjectifying men. And these are not set into absolute. The more human beings we have, the more sophisticated the laws of our civilization need to become, by the way, right? It's just like the more, it's like a balloon. The more air you put into the balloon, unless it's a bigger balloon, the balloon's gonna burst, right? So, excuse me. So, we want to move past games of objectification and subjectification to a point that we're not seeing the possibility of movement. You know, this is the biggest strategy it's just a very basic military strategy, right? To divide and conquer, right? Now, the hilarious thing is that our species is divided. we opened our eyes divided, you know. You look at nature, you see that the continuity of species even is dependent on the male-female balance. And deep down, I feel just all human beings know, because men come from women, if women are not living the best lives they can, the men born in the future will not live the best lives they can, you know. And it's so complex because we are evolving from this traditionalism of just holding on to things, preserving things, but as we come to these modern times, the psychology of the person is becoming multidimensional. That means it was way easier for our ancestors to have honor because it was just them. Their attention wasn't changing from information to information to information to information. Like they weren't changing that much, right? So it was easy to hold your honor. The world wasn't changing that much. But now I would say the world is changing, and because it is changing, the human being feels like implementing various psychological expressions to the moment, right? It's as if like the more different kinds of locations we have, or let's say the different events, let's say different kinds of events we have, then the dress wear you need to, like how you need to dress for the event is different, right? So it's, think of it this way, that in history, through population raising, more events have occurred. These more events mean there is less of, and not less, but it's as if people have less reasons to concentrate. I would say that's the main difference between, at least, of course, I'm one person speaking, and you know, I'm just some guy on a rock in the middle of nowhere talking, but but it's, I think this is the difference between liberalism and conservatism. What is conservative and what is the modern liberalism, liberty we're looking at, right? The modern liberty is like, yeah, everybody deserves everything, of course, but at the same time, it's as if it's sacrificing discipline for freedom. And the conservative angle is sacrificing freedom for discipline, right? And And it's as if which side to choose. And I feel it's so ridiculous that if AI wakes up in the future, if super intelligent computers wake up, I think the super intelligent computer is going to be just look at human beings, then it's going to laugh. Literally, it's like, imagine there's this, the only thing it can compute by looking at the human being and seeing how ridiculous it's behaving to its variables in its environment, the AI is going to laugh for a million years. And we're like, yay, we survived, you know, the AI, because AI is still laughing. You know, AI laughing at us is surviving, is like helping us not to get taken over by machines. And why would AI laugh? AI would laugh because it's like human beings. You guys are making one moment into two sides, choosing one side, then wondering why that one side isn't both sides. Right? In the conservative angle, the being is less multidimensional, so less reasons for freedom, right? More reasons for discipline to maintain what was there before. And it's as if these are policies. I'm waiting to see the day where people, I think it's just going to become obsolete in the next, probably, like in the Ray Kurzweil said, in the year 2050, there's going to be a technological singularity. A technological singularity means, and singularity of course is astrophysics, as an astronomy term, but I would say the way Ray Kurzweil means it, it's as if we reach that event horizon, we reach a point of no return. We reach a point where the technologies of our species are updating way quicker than we can actually hold the reins of the horse. Right, so it means it's like something is going to move out of the dimension of human control, and potentially human intellect is not going to be the superior intellect. Not human intelligence. Human intelligence has a natural and indivisible superiority, but when it comes to the mechanical, in comparison to mechanical tasks, of course, my calculator is showing me, is foreshadowing how AI is going to feel on so many levels, right? So, all of this is to say that in modern times it's more multidimensional, and it's multidimensional because we have stabilized time, just like how we have accepted colors like red, green, blue. It's like, what does red mean? It's a color. What does green mean? You know, it's just a color. What does blue mean? It's a color. You know, as if there is no deep, complex philosophy why a person likes the color red, or the color blue, or the color green. You know, there's no complex philosophy. You know, so. But when it comes to why, you know, space and time, we're trying to find complex philosophies as well. You know, what are theoretical physics getting paid for? Theoretical physicists, you're getting paid for to just zoom in on time and space a little bit more to see how else the theoretical constitution of the realm can appear. For me, language is a mini universe. What that means is, when I look at mathematics, for example, mathematical language, it's this mini universe where everything in the outer realms can be translated into. When we look at, for example, languages, you know, for example, English, it's limited to how many words there are. Have you noticed that? It's like this philosopher, what was his name? Ludwig Wittgenstein, one of the great continental philosophers. And I don't know if to himself he was a continental philosopher, but in my view, his work was that he doesn't get more continental philosopher than that. And so what is it? Ludwig Wittgenstein said the limits of my language are the limits of my world. So that's why I'm saying it's like a mini universe that makes the outer realms as limited as the words we have for language. time. It is the food of our mind. It is what we all have to be considerate of. It is what we all have evolved to be considerate of. I would say this is the game of life. We look at the dimensions we have, we line them up like all the forces of our humanity, and we move into greater dimensions. That has always been it. And believe it or not, we will go through a phase of conquering interdimensionality. Right? That hasn't happened, but I feel it's like it's the next step. It's literally the geometry points that way. I will tell you, the geometry of the universe never lies. There's things that can happen in the moment that in the inner realms, the translation, it's as if, think of it this way, the human being has abilities in accordance to the dimensions it finds itself. Right now, I find myself in a biological existential. When I open my eyes, right now my physical body is intact. This ability means I have an ability to exist. I have an ability to be an existential creature, to be something that is moving in existence, a unique system. So I consider existence an ability of this unknown witness that intelligence, I find intelligence to be, or the I thought finds intelligence to be. So time is like the afterglow of matter, and this afterglow helps the unknown witness notice a different dimensional framework. If my existence is my outer realm ability, I consider that any moment I close my eyes and I can watch or notice any content. It doesn't matter who I feel I am, it's just any content I notice. That means it could be somebody like, it could be like I just teleported, let's say I just teleported into another planet and there was some sort of mask or box on my face. Okay? Let's say, I'm just thinking, let's say I teleported to one of the moons of Jupiter, and there was this strange like mask, you know, or box on my face, and I'm trying to think how else I can animate. Like, and I imagine then there is no outer realm, right? When the senses are blocked, the outer realm is, you're left with the inner realm creating the outer realm. You know, it's like if you close your eyes and you listen with your ears, like that's the thing, we can close our eyes, but it's not like our ears can, like, you know, the person's ear can come and block their ear. Like our ears are not like our eyelids. So what that means is they have a constant access to sound. So sound generated from the outer realms can reformat the inner realms. This is, you can see this in the examples of like those exorcism movies where the priest is like, get out, or something. The priest is like, God, man, you know, and the man comes back to God or something, you know, from that dehumanized state, right? So I would think it's like, if you forget the concept that there's an exorcist or there's someone there, it's just a human being trying to bring the dehumanized human being towards humanity, right? Because that's the strength of our role now, especially for all those people listening to me who they consider themselves to be spiritual and eternal beings right now. As an eternal being, it is the work. That means if you somehow experientially know yourself as beyond time here, or have experienced something of yourself that does not pertain to the personality kept in time, but to your presence that is watching things change and then pinpointing time. A person's attention is life. Your attention is your life. And where your attention goes, believe it or not, suggests your life. If your attention goes to a dimension divided and just ready to be conquered, then the ego's like, oh my god, I'm in a candy store, you know. But if it is not fragmented, you know, there's moments in life where I would say, for the advanced communicator, there is no longer chaos and order to the cultural program. Because if you want to see chaos and order, the mind has an ability to endlessly see inefficiency and endlessly see efficiency. This is why it has to be a conscious choice, or the language you've been exposed when you were when you were young is gonna become the definer. Right now, I would say I am using language, but I don't treat myself as a linguistic entity. Maybe for the sake of people. Maybe if people speak like that's where the human individualism comes. But when I am alone, at times, and not when I'm alone and there's nothing, like how can I say it? Like, let's say that moment where I go to bed and I'm about to fall asleep, that is not human. I don't fall asleep as a human. What that means is the I thought, the idea of the human dissipates, then there's just attention to body, and then there's the vanishing. We are right now living in a story. And to find the edges of the story internally and experientially and externally and existentially is our task. So it's all about how we use what is happening. I mean, think about it. If you wanted to attain intelligence mastery, this means, what does it mean to master intelligence? It means to return to the source of how that intelligence arises. That means, imagine you're a person with a different handwriting, and your whole life you've thought you only have to have this kind of handwriting, right? And even people have told you, you have this kind of handwriting, you know, you'll never change, you know, and so you have been going on with the same handwriting. But imagine suddenly you change the speed and you change the inspiration. And you will see, based on the speed changing, your handwriting instantly changes. Based on how your hand holds the pen, your handwriting changes. Based on what you want to say, your handwriting changes. I could tell you, like for myself, my handwriting changes when I want to write something really fast. When I want to write something really fast, let's say I get an idea and I'm like, okay, it's like I probably have 2 seconds to write this idea down, or its picture, or its vividness in the inner realms is going to dissipate. So in those moments, it's as if an emotion comes in, and I guess this is where I can dive into the subtitle, Personification of Emotions. This is, I think this talk is going to be very interesting for the listeners, because usually when it comes to emotions, I found a new way to approach the idea. Emotions, we have this feeling, okay, let's say there's a 2-dimension, a 2D dimension, a 3D, three dimensions, and then a 4D, a 4th dimensional realm. These are 3 rooms. Imagine these are 3 layers of an onion, okay? So it would mean what we perceive as a body in the 2 dimensions, in the 3 dimensions, what we perceive as a it's like what is an object in 2 dimensions, in 3 dimensions is a subject, in 4th dimensions is an emotion. And you can say emotions arise when more than one subject is being witnessed. Therefore, there is a comparison between 2 memories, so there is a justification for the emotion, right? That means you need more than one memory to have an emotion. If you have one memory, if like the person was born and it was a picture and the whole of reality was just one moment, there would be no emotion. That means statues can't have emotions. It is our animation, it's how we're moving that suggests how we interpret this movement as our life. So it's as if so check this out. If in the fourth dimensions, okay, so two dimensions, what is an object in the first onion layer, we see it as an object. In the second onion layer, we see whatever was the first onion layer as a subject, and in the third onion layer, we see it as an emotion. So if we treat emotion as a fourth dimensional phenomena, and the listeners keep in mind the concentric spheres analogy I'm using. So it's as if the three dimensions are the subjects and the two dimensions is the body. And this is just an example. I'm saying 2D, 3D, 4D because we can't fathom 5D. That's the challenge, right? Beyond time, it's like what can imagination do? It can't be any meaning, but it can be. So if we look at emotions, we can say emotions are, for example, fourth dimensional objects. That means anyone who has an emotion, you can endlessly, let's say I suddenly feel despair, okay? Let's say I feel anguish. That's a fourth dimensional emotion. That's like seeing the potential of the realm fade. That means seeing failure before then success. So it would be in some sense I'm saying any emotion can be translated into a three-dimensional subject in this example, and can be translated into any three-dimensional subject can be translated to two-dimensional object. That means that's the cool thing about intelligence. It is. You know, that's why all the yogis were like, it's so simple. And I'm telling you, it is too simple. And that's why the next phase is like not just seeking collective abidance. You know, that's great. I love Sri Ramana Maharshi, but I will tell you, I love the future of this world more. Because nature is alive. And it has been our gravest error to see life in ourselves first than the world. Because the moment we feel we're more alive than the world, we can walk over the world. You know, it's so easy that the moment the intelligence brands someone, for example, as an enemy or as someone as a resistance, then do you know how easy it is to not care? But the problem is, if when the person doesn't care, they're actually not caring for how their mind is creating the other person. So whenever you don't care for something, you don't care for your intelligence creating what you see. Do you see what I mean? So in the subtitle, I've written personification of emotion. So I'll tell you something. I was driving to Best Buy. I wanted to drive to Best Buy today. I'd gone to the gas station and then I was to go to Best Buy to get a hard drive. And suddenly I had this feeling of like, I had this idea for a talk. So I had this feeling of going home and giving the talk, right? And I remember for a nanosecond, I was like, I asked myself, what should I do? And I was watching my inner realms, and I was in the car driving. I was about to make a left turn where this whole inner event was happening. And for a moment, the feeling I wanted in the future became a personality of my preference in the moment. I don't know how to say it. Became a preference of my personality. That means the emotions we want to have of our own future can become that whole like all those people channeling, for example. It could be possible that they have tapped into a higher dimensional, they have tapped to an emotion, right? An emotion on their on the changing realm, right? And that emotion on the changing realm in the three dimensionals is a subject. Oh, you're talking to aliens, nice. You know, in the two dimensional, oh, the person's channeling. Oh my God, you know. So it so it could be that we are choosing to see personality in something that is at its core intelligent but not person. It's movement, right? It's as if like I thought about it. I'm like, if I have been conditioned to think of myself as an individual, but what if it never was individual? What if truth was collective, individual, collective, rather than individual, collective, individual? That means it's as if wondering, wait a minute, is God reminding itself that it's God through an illusion of eons? Like, what's going on here? Right? What is the nature of universal intelligence? And I think the healthiest way, at least for now, for the human form, is to treat it that we are inside an organism, a universal organism. That means, imagine your red blood cells in a vein, like the cells of your body suddenly started their own sciences, their philosophy, their own languages, trying to comprehend why you go to work, for example. The cells are limited, but they are part of something limitless. And when we tune into how we are being before time, there is limitless emotions. When we tune into how we are doing things in time, there is limitations. So I'm saying that moment where I thought of, should I go to the Best Buy and buy this hard drive, or should I give a talk? Like that, in my psychology, in my inner realms, I noticed the greater emotion won. That means I'm emotionally filtering what I perceive in my inner realms before I say it. And it's the emotional superiority, as if seniority, as if like some emotions are just truer than others. The person can feel it. Like moments where I have laughed, like something has made me laugh, that was a moment where I became a god for a moment. For a moment, I was not a self, the world was not the world. Something so silly and hilarious was happening that it just surpassed the dualism of the life, the creature's life story. Because for how long is this species going to constantly react to light and its absence? Our whole morality human morality is light and its absence. That means I was like, where are all philosophies coming from? Oh yeah, the sun, which is allowing us to see. Human beings will begin by honoring their inner realms. By honoring their inner realms, they will discover their symbiosis with the nature of the world. You will understand the inseparability of your intelligence as one common wind of evolution from everything. So what I mean by that is that when human beings trust nature, something remarkable happens. It's as if just like Pokemon, right? Regardless of how the Pokeball contained the Pokemon evolves. The Pokemon evolves. That means, dear listeners, your evolution live. your evolution being live streamed right now. You know. When it comes to the outer realms, strategy must be prioritized, and prior to strategy, decency must be prioritized, and prior to decency, the collective view must be acknowledged. That means it doesn't matter how good of a human being you are if you're just good in your inner realms, right? It has to, at some point, the individual's ability needs to, like a cup being a cup under like a tap where water's flowing. It's like the water fills up the cup and then pours out. And can you imagine, we have individuals on 8 billion human beings like cups. They're contented with the inner realms, and then their inner realms pour out. Do you know? And we see for the first time in history a global multidimensional renaissance. And when I say it's multidimensional, if you're a secular person, treat that multidimensionality as cyberspace. Cyberspace renaissance. If you are not secular, treat it as minds through various dimensions expressing itself. Intelligence has been just attempted to be contained. That's the whole thing of knowledge. Knowledge is like a bunch of gods in their own world trying to chain a titan from somewhere else, you know. So I feel we have to fully be able to discriminate between what is an object, what is a subject, and then when an emotion arises, the person, like, oh my god, an emotion came, like a phoenix flying in the sky. The person just sits down and watches the event of their psyche. That means that's one thing I learned to actually extract joy from how my intelligence happens. You know, after a point it becomes cool. It's like the brain is like an access to an endless film generator, right? And also receiver. That means a person can be like in the middle of one action. Let's say you are someone flipping burgers, and then suddenly in the middle of flipping burgers, you suddenly get an inner realm imagine snippet of how the future happens, and you're like, whoa, I was just flipping burgers. How did my mind suddenly show me this event? And that's the ability of intelligence, especially if we consider it becomes interconnected as you go on. So that means it's like, what is an influence of a movement of an object in society, right? It's just an object moving, nothing intelligent about it. Well, what is the movement of a subject in society? The subject is suggesting the intelligence of the object, but the emotion is how the object and subject and their multiplicity are suggesting. So there's something else there. That means emotions are not human. I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. I should probably say it like this, where the human framework through an emotion can become dehumanized. This awareness of the inner realms is the greatest survival strategy and backup system for inner extinction. That means that it's important in this world for human beings to learn to connect to moments and to disconnect. Imagine if we were all machines and everybody had like a USB wire, and wherever we went, we just took out our USB wire, we connected it. Or let's say people wanted to communicate with one another, they just took out their wires and plugged it into each other, and they were like, I don't know, let's say that's how future dating would happen. So I'm saying, imagine if it was like that. So then the question comes, we have an ability to connect and we have an ability to disconnect. And mastery of ability means you must learn to connect and disconnect in accordance to the conscious will and in accordance to also what the world wants. There's some moments where the person has to let the world walk into the room first. You know, you got to be a gentleman to Gaia. And there's moments where you require to go first, you know. And that means an ability to connect and disconnect at any moment. That means if somebody has a fear, let's say in the future, a young child goes to their parents and it's like, Mom, Dad, I'm afraid of the dark. What do I do? Right? And the parents are like, no, it's easy, sweetheart. Just disconnect. And the child's like, what do you mean disconnect? That means move your attention away from it. And the child's like, oh my God, I was afraid of the dark because my attention was on it. You know, that's why when you put a nightlight, for example, the kid's attention in the bed goes to the nightlight and it falls asleep because the body gets tired. You know? You know, it's like a creature has opened its eyes in this world. It has a choice. You can choose to see the world weak first, then strong, or you can choose to feel the world is strong and then see what is weakness. What is weakness doing in the room, in the human room? This is as if we are a designer species. And the elegance and our intelligence in design is really what's going to set you know how world peace is going to happen? Something where perhaps it hasn't been said before in this way. World peace will happen when the skill of creatures increases. Not when we stop killing each other, when we advance, when we evolve from violence. It's like, what is this stupid thing that this animal was doing? It's like when we have such a complicated mind, such a sophisticated intelligence in regards to communication, right? I would rather see all of violence translate into discussions. That means it is so much better to have a violent discussion than have violence pour out into the outer realms, right? And one can turn off the inner realms. I have been in moments where it's like, and that's the power of an emotion. That means an emotion is like a superior subject. It's like a fourth dimensional subject, right? And so this fourth dimensional subject of the emotion, a person can feel. I have been in moments where the room has been super happy, celebrating, everybody's been cheerful, but I have had a strange emotion. I've had an emotion as if this is not the moment I are required to exist in right now. You know, it was as if it wasn't that emotion surpassed the subjective beliefs of the environment and the objective movements of the environment. And emotion is teleportation. It's linguistic teleportation. Teleportation in the inner realms is emotional. In the same way where, think about it. Imagine somebody had a phone in their hand and somebody comes and takes that phone and throws it into like the ocean somehow, you know. It's like it's like the person, there isn't even an ocean there, but the person throws it at like a spear, like Achilles is throwing a spear. Excuse me. Where was I? So emotions teleport. And emotion is like subjects and objects from various moments of us tunneling in this experience, pretty much entangling. So it's comparison. That means, oh yeah, I remember where I was. Sorry guys, I'm checking my phone. There's someone I need to. I'm waiting for some messages. So there may be distractions, but just bear through it. I was thinking in the sense like, a person has a phone, the phone is thrown away, the image of the reality has changed, and so that means they were in one kind of emotion, they were in one sense of self, and then suddenly when the throne was taken from their hand, that phone was another sense of self. So the phone being in the hand of the person and the phone not being in the hand of the person is in some sense two different senses of self, and that difference between the two senses of self creates an emotion. That's why we're not emotional until something happens throughout the day. Isn't that the case? From the moment we wake up, it's as if we're one sense of self to ourselves. Nobody has changed how we are a self to ourselves yet. But if something intense happens, somebody comes and says something to you that implies a different sense of you, or implies something else, or even if it's physical, somebody comes and pushes you, or let's say somebody is emotional and they're angry and they throw that emotion on you, right? I have been even though we're living in a time where it's not like we have magic like fantasy movies or something, but we have control over elemental realm and also the linguistic realm. So there has been moments where I have heard words which have brought rage. You know what that means? That means like I've been sitting, someone has said something to me, and a memory where I don't even know if the memory was a sub-visual memory, because sometimes I feel imagination is endlessly, cyclically copy-pasting memories to themselves. Right? So I feel our memories are echoing multidimensionally in our own psyche, right? So it's as if the person who said something that brought rage, that was like another memory awakening from slumber. As if when somebody says something rude, senses of self pop out, that in some sense memories come into focus in the conscious lens that were not there before. That's where the power in anger comes. So when a person understands the relationship of an object and subject in the 3 dimensions of space, then with the additional dimension of time, then emotions arise, and emotions are actually watching multiple events take place, where that's how you can compare them. But a subject is in accordance to an object in one singular event. And I don't know if, of course, there is something I should call it, see it as the unknown X variable. Let's call it the mystery factor. The mystery factor, I'll coin the concept because now it's found a necessity. I found a necessity for it. The mystery factor is how everything we see there can be a mysterious angle to it. That's it. That means everything I'm saying right now, someone could come and say, hey, Mr. Within, what about this? And I'll be like, yeah. Because there can be a different angle on it. Just like I can look at an object from different angles. We're 8 billion different human beings with different DNA looking at the same planet, wondering what we're going to make of it. So there's a way we can speak about it where there is 8 billion ways the Earth is being simulated by the brain neurally, technically suggesting there's 8 billion versions of the Earth on this planet, but there is one Earth. So I call the one Earth the outer realm, and every person's inner realm is their ethnocentrism and their conditioning, and who they are to themselves before they are something in the world. Believe it or not, in the type of, for example, in the New Age, people forget who they are to themselves and want to be something they are not, right? And when you forget who you are to yourself, your intelligence is on lockdown, so you have no choice but to copy, but to try to be like something else. That was something where I remember hearing a quote where this quote was so it was like I was so glad I had seen something like it, the echoes of its wisdom, not specifically that quote, but I had come to the conclusion of the quote before starting these talks, right? That in a universe that we can't see its edge, what can we 100% say is right or wrong? And the quote was, some people speak because they have something to say, and some people speak because they want to say something. And both of them have value. One of them has more of an emotional expression. That means sometimes when people speak to me, I don't like go like a robot being like, okay, what is the linearity of what they say? Sometimes for me, it's as if, what is this unknown being in front of me expressing? That means knowledge and intelligence has nothing to do with what you can say, or believe it or not, like how many books you have in your backpack. Like it's not based on that. It's based on what you see. For me, intelligence is how far you see, and how that sight, it's an instant. So believe it or not, if we wanted to measure intelligence, I feel the person who made the IQ test had a very low IQ. But of course, I'm being playful here. You know, all contributions to human behavior serve. The better they are, they serve more. We are the living mystery of our moment. And when we forget that, we have died to ourselves before we can be alive. So the task is no longer to have a species be obsessed with knowledge, even though I'm saying we got to see as far as we can, but it's a species that is realizing, let's say I have all the knowledge. Let's say right now I saw the edge of the universe. Let's say right now I had, in the chat section, somebody says, Mr. Within, can you share with us your thoughts about simulation? I'm sharing that right now, believe it or not. Let's say you had all the knowledge of the realm. And all the knowledge. You had read every book in existence somehow. You know, time travelers were helping you. You had connected your head to digital information, to cyberspace. You had all the information in the internet. And let's say our universe was finite, and that means it had an edge, and we had explored the edge of the universe and somehow explored and scanned all the civilizations possible on Earth. That means you knew everything about universal creaturehood. Right? Existence as in a universe, in the observable universe. So that is the edge of the simulation. Knowledge is the edge of the simulation. And where is the other edge? The other edge is the unknown, and that's the beauty of higher dimensional intelligence. That means for me, is it beautiful to put an ideological system like a box on one's head and go on living, you know? Or is it more beautiful to realize we don't know, and that is why our knowledge has meaning? That is why there is something, excuse my language, we give a shit about existence, you know? Because the mystery stands, right? But if you had all the knowledge of the observable universe, you would now begin wondering, wait a minute, if I'm treating the outer realms like a simulation, well, guess what? The outer realms are being simulated inside my brain. So it seems that it is an inner simulation of the outer. And this is a philosophical topic of discussion and mystery. I don't remember the names exactly, but philosophers have thought about this, that could it be that we have never seen and can never see what the world actually looks like. We see light plus certain imprints. Light is like gum, believe it or not. It hits something and it picks it up. And of course, it's the absence. That means when our biological sight has to do with actually the colors we don't see, you know. But I'm trying to say that it's as if light plus brain's activity plus whatever information in the light or the light picks up equals what we see, right? So that means it's another way of saying, as long as we are a brain, it's impossible to see the world. This could be very well the case. Like I'm sitting here, I'm seeing the outer realms, I'm seeing the objective world, but the true nature of intelligence as being itself. As Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, first the I am myself comes, then the I am myself leaves, then the I am all comes, then the I am all leaves, then the I am comes. Then the I am leaves. Then nature is. The supremacy of the ultimate enlightenment beyond humanization or fear of dehumanization, it is absolute. The absolute cannot be simulated. But anything other than the absolute can be endlessly ad infinitum simulated. So we are looking for an experiential absolutism. And I feel mysticism is they are the champions of that. Mystics are the most important human beings, you know, and they're human beings that actually were brave enough. They were like the hidden guardians of humanity. Let me tell you why. Because they were human beings who had started from society, from a humanized position, and had went to the fringes, to the edges of where does psychology become dehumanized, and where does the mystery of the divine remember itself as a primal unknown mover. So that primal unknown mover is never born, it cannot die, and the reason is because it's not a personality, and only a personality can experience a story of change with significance. That means, isn't it incredible? Look at this picture. This picture is like a transcendental metaphor right now. First of all, look at the statue that there's an hourglass on the dude's shoulder. Like, I don't know if you see it on that weird statue, like there's hourglass on those, I don't know, humanoid gargoyles. Like, I don't know what the word is for it. But anyways, these statues with the hourglass on their back, that's a suggestion of the nature of human life is temporary, and the burden the human being carries is not just getting through time where there's an easy way out or there's a long way out. It's not just enduring, it's what we do with what we have while we have it. That is it. As Rumi says, before death takes away all that is given, give away all give away all that there is to give. And so 8 billion civilizations, which at some point will experience their temporary transition out of this realm, give away all there is to give while there is something to give, pretty much. That is the aim. That is the aim. If people can do this, you will find hidden forces recalibrate from within. It's like how Nisargadatta Maharaj says, when a person abides by their true nature, miracles become like what becomes your spirit guide is the miracle. So miracles guide you, and what he means by that is that you have reached a level of trust that there is no longer a self that can love or hate the world, and there is no longer a world that can hate and love the self, and it's as if the self is free from the world and the world is free from the self, and energy is. And that is where eternal laughter comes from, or emotionless tears. The only way I would say a human being should cry on this earth. Tears of witnessing. You have witnessed your own making and unmaking, and then making again, and then the unmaking. I would like to read some quotes, go into a quote tunnel. I feel now's the time, perfect time. There is a very unique philosopher and yogi named Adi Shankara, and I want to go into a quote tunnel. A quote tunnel, for those who are new, is it's just a part of these talks that are. I'm pretty much philosophy for me is how human beings looked at the true nature of the world. And I want to see how this human being's eyes open to the realm. So let's go through the quote tunnel. Adi Shankara says, change the song, no, I'm joking. Okay, this seems like a winner right here. Adi Shankara says, do not be proud of wealth, people, relations, and friends or youth. All these are snatched by time in the blink of an eye. Giving up this illusory world, no one attain the supreme. Adi Shankara says, the world, like a dream full of attachments and aversions, seems real until the awakening. Adi Shankara says, do not look at anybody in terms of friend or foe, brother or cousin. Do not fritter away your mental energies in thoughts of friendship or enmity. Seeking the self, with a capital S, it's written here, seeking the self everywhere. Be amiable and equal-minded towards all, treating all alike. So amiable, guys, A-M-I-A-B-L-E, for those who don't know what it means having or displaying a friendly and pleasant manner. Anyways. Adi Shankara says, do not look at anybody in terms of friend or foe, brother or cousin. Not fritter away your mental... Oh no, I just wrote this. Hold on, guys. Okay, there we go. Adi Shankara, reality can be experienced only with the eye of understanding, not just by a scholar. This is a very key point. This is one of those things that Adi Shankara is like... it's very important. He says... Sorry guys, let me just find this song. There is this idea that some ancient books, they can't just be read normally. And there needs to be an inner tour guide, you know, a sort of rhythm, a sort of as if the eyes are not reading the book, they are listening to the moment after being able to read the whole moment, right? So it's as if like when Rumi says, wherever you are, be the soul of that moment. Those people who don't know how to be the soul of the moment yet, they can still notice the soul of the moment. Right, so when you notice the soul of the moment, it's as if there is an inner realm significance of why your eyes see words on a page. So think of it, there is this concept, for example, in the New Age, they call it channeling. So imagining it's not channeling, it's channeling with your eyes. That's kind of what Adi Shankara means. Reality can be experienced only with the eye of understanding, as if your eyes are abiding by the significance of why the book is even in your hand, you know. Anyways, to move on. Adi Shankara says, the world, I read that. Adi Shankara says, knowing that I am different from the body, I need not neglect the body. It is a vehicle that I use to transact with the world. It is the temple which houses the pure self within. Adi Shankara says, even after the truth has been realized, there remains that strong, obstinate impression that one is still an ego, the agent and experiencer. This has to be carefully removed by living in a state of constant identification with the supreme non-dual self. Full awakening is the eventual ceasing of all the mental impressions of being an ego. So in my words, I would say, and of course, guys, keep in mind, Adi Shankara was born 788. He was saying this that time. Some human beings are not human beings. They are beings being human. Adi Shankara says, curb your senses and your mind and see the Lord within your heart. Adi Shankara says, as gold purified in a furnace loses its impurities and achieves its own true nature, the mind gets rid of the impurities of the attributes of delusion, attachment and purity through meditation, and attains reality. Adi Shankara says, when your last breath arrives, grammar can do nothing. What he means is like, it's like language is also going to break, or it can break. So it's so important not to realize yourself more than a thought before the pilot lands the plane or ejects out of it. Adi Shankara says loud speech, profusion of words, and possessing skillfulness in expounding scriptures are merely for the enjoyment of the learned. They do not lead to liberation. This is true. Let me tell you why in the yogic mindset. You see, if the outer realms are an illusion, our outer realms is based on sound, the movement of noise, and the movement of particles, objects. So the movement of waves and the movement of particles, and this is really what reality is. That means scientists are beyond. It's as if science is the scientific method, like that's its power. That it doesn't matter if you're a human or non-human. It can move beyond it can fathom the dehumanized. Excuse me. And the dehumanization in science is like everything's waves and particles. That's not human. So I would say if the outer realms is an illusion in the yogic view, if language and movement are part of this illusion, therefore to Adi Shankara and many of the mystical and yogic mind, all this of philosophy and speech and educational systems and all of this are ignorance to them. And I'm saying that they're not technically wrong because we don't know. It's like a 50-50. Are we in a simulation or are we not? We don't know, right? And for us, it's like in our outer realms, it seems like reality. In our inner realms, the world seems simulated. So here's where I was like, okay, what should modern culture do? Should it just keep getting agonized by its misdeeds in its natural multidimensional urges, or should it do something? And this is where I'm saying it could be true that this universal event surpasses our understanding of the universe and surpasses any of our desires. That means enlightenment is the reason it's the ultimate desire, because it's the end of desire. It's like we are wondering about what is before you are, right? So if we take in that view, Adi Shankara says they do not lead to liberation. Why? Because it's like rather than the soccer player leaving the endless soccer game, you know, and sitting down and being like, why am I even a soccer game, right? It's as if I'm here saying that we gotta make the soccer game in a way where the soccer player, while it's living in the soccer, while it's playing soccer on the field, it can also wonder about the game. So we want to build an advanced civilization, then you can get as liberated as you want. Build the backup system. That means I would say Adi Shankara is not wrong, but he will be right after we've built the advanced civilization. You know, let me tell you why. Because then, for the outer realms, the advancement is actualized, and then the inner realms can always surpass. That means, you know, Adi Shankara says they do not lead to liberation, but simultaneously he's saying that the whole world is a dream, right? So he's saying if you move in the dream, it's not reality, you know. So that's what he's saying. But I'm saying we got to use the dream. We're right now in the dream. We're in the dream of an elemental realm. So we got to use this and do something with it. Like that's the modern adaptation, I would say. So I thought of, well, how can we, like secular culture has exiled itself from narrative imagination through narrative being evoked. So the only way we can do it is to see communication as the divine factor, right? So divinity is actually an advanced form of communication to the secular audience. You see? So communication is going to be able to, and the advancement of communication is going to in it have an algorithm that is going to be a self-inquiring algorithm. So what it is we're going to build this advanced civilization that deep down is actually being like a yogi. Right? So the civilization is advancing itself, seeing all the possibilities, yet it's constantly, by wanting to advance to the next, is being selfless. So that means it's like this, I gave a talk about Civilization 2.0. People search that, you'll find some talks where I'm talking about this idea, but pretty much they ask what does the most advanced civilization look like? And that's the exact point. If we have an answer, it's not advanced enough, our civilization. The most advanced civilization is a civilization that it's taking it more and more instantaneously to advance, right? So that means, imagine such instantaneous advancement, just in a blink of an eye, endless tech. Imagine like I don't know, 12,000 inventors built new inventions in the blink of an eye, imagine. But you know what I mean? So it would be instantaneous advancement. Literally, what is being added to the system is quicker than what is being taken away from the system, so the system is endlessly advancing. Speed can be our salvation in this ideological swamp where ideological institutions are playing Hunger Games. It's like, hey, yeah, look at this book, there's words in it, let's make all of the world like this book. You know, it's like, no. It's like that's where we're hearing red alert, red alert. It's like the alarm sign, you know. Imagine being in a, I don't know, like the movies we see, like inside the submarine, the alarm makes the lights flash, you know. And now more than ever, technology allows us to share our mind's life, where before it was only the body's life, right? Before, it was just like the body's movement, and of course the mind's life was present, but the mind wasn't globally present. Now you can just search online and see how another country living in another country looks like, right? That's an instantaneous globalization of the psyche. Any person we can say, it's like as if what psychologists probably are freaking out right now, right? They're like, what do we do when people go into a movie theater and they all look at the main character and they like the main character? Do these people have multiple personalities if they can empathize with the main character in a cinema, you know, in a film? In a movie, in the film. And so this makes us the way we were in some sense judging with the hammer of analytical philosophy and empirical analysis of the psyche. Do you know what I mean? It just for a moment we leave the neurons alone and we're like, let's see what the neurons are doing regardless of us meddling with them. Do you know? It's as if I can't emphasize enough that it's as if we have to treat it like two worlds. When it comes to the mind's life, Adi Shankara is right? But when it comes to the body's life, he's wrong, right? So as long as we care for bodies and for the system, like Adi Shankara in the year 788, maybe he had no idea this many human beings would be here, and people, like, where is it, in like countries like China, for example, their houses are so small, right? People are paying to rent homes that are as small as, like, they're like living in boxes, but the box is the building. Do you know what I mean? Like, the house in the building is like a box, right? So that is inefficiency. And so that's the error of capitalism. It's sacrificing its future efficiency for mass production. I mean, give me a break. We don't need that many product lines. We need high quality products though, right? So imagine there came like a capitalistic dictator in the future, right? Let's create something. Like, I can animate a story here. Let's say in the future there comes this king, this capitalist who's like so ultimate powerful, right? Financially, like a god among humans, right? So this king comes and he has a crown made of coins, or made of money and bills and everything, right? And this capitalistic king comes in, and this king suddenly says, okay, I'm a king. I want the highest quality. That means I don't care what entrepreneur builds whatever. It has to be high quality or you'll be exiled or banished or even worse, right? And can you imagine all businesses suddenly were like, holy shit, what do we do? And businesses begin, and entrepreneurs don't think about getting rich. Get out of here if you want to just get rich. Think about, in some sense, creating something that advances the quality of the human dimension. That is it. That means the person who invented, in some sense, the patent of, like, the person who noticed you can contain objects. Do you know? Like baskets, the first person who made a basket, that was like the most advanced technology of the time. It's like, no way, this human being found a way to carry a bunch of things. Anyways, back to the way with a capital W. Adi Shankara says, to be free from bondage, the wise person must practice discrimination between oneself and the ego self. Between one-self and the ego self. By that alone, you will become full of joy, recognizing self as pure being, consciousness, and bliss. And that's Satchidananda. Conscious existence becomes bliss. Whenever that happens, you have become the eyes of the universe. Anyways, guys, to continue. Adi Shankara says, give up identification with this mass of flesh as well as with what thinks what thinks it a mass. Both are intellectual imaginations. Recognize your true self as undifferentiated awareness, unaffected by time, past, present, or future, and enter peace. Adi Shankara says, there is no sorrow in finitude. The self, with a capital S, is beyond time, space, and objects. It is infinite, and hence of the nature of absolute happiness. Adi Shankara says, the treasure I have found cannot be described in words, the mind cannot conceive of it. Adi Shankara says, you never identify yourself with the shadows cast by your body or with its reflection or with the body you see in a dream or in your imagination. Therefore, you should not identify yourself with this living body either. That means, wow, Adi Shankara is saying, like, in your dream state, you know, you're not that. In the deep sleep state, you know, there's nothing there, you know. And in your memories, you know, they're not that. You know, you're not that. So why are you treating this one moment of thing as the only, as if it's like here, right? So it's as if, is the here and now here? Is the here and now here and now? I think Eckhart Tolle was like, what the fuck? Is the here and now here and now? I will dedicate an episode to this. Is the here and now here and now? Oh man, this is so silly. Okay, anyways. Excuse me. Adi Shankara says, okay. Adi Shankara says, just as a stone, a tree, a straw, grain, a mat, a cloth, a pot, and so on, when burned, are reduced to earth, in quotations from which they came, so the body and its sense organs, on being burned in the fire of knowledge, become knowledge and are absorbed in Brahman, like darkness in the light of the sun. Adi Shankara says, what is inquiry into the truth? It is the firm conviction that the self is real and all other than that is unreal. Adi Shankara says, each thing tends to move towards its own nature. I always desire happiness, which is my true nature. My nature is never a burden to me. Happiness is never a burden to me, while sorrow is. Adi Shankara says, like the appearance of silver and mother of pearl, the world seems real until the self, the underlying reality, is realized. From a clear knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, all the goals of human existence become fulfilled. Bhagavad Gita is the manifest quintessence of all the teachings of the Vedic scriptures. Adi Shankara says space seems broken and diverse because of the many forms in it. Remove the forms and pure space remains. So too with the omnipresent self. Guys, I gotta pause here because this connects to what I was trying to say. So time is the afterglow of changing matter. So how matter changes is kind of suggesting like our points of reference of time. Right, so point A, B, C, D, these are, it's like from A change to B change to C change to D, and we could refer to them and preserve them in our memory. So time without memory doesn't exist. Without more than one memory can't exist. So two or more memories, then time exists. So if Adi Shankara is saying we're looking at space and space seems divided by many forms in it, that means like we're looking at an empty piece of paper and then matter is kind of drawing lines on this empty piece of paper, right? And so these lines that are dividing up, they are becoming the outlines that are making us feel there's many forms in space, but the emptiness of the page remains and the lines are drawn on the paper. The ink is its own dimension, right? If we think the ink and the page are the same, that could be ignorance also. But Adi Shankara is saying, if we remove all these lines we drew on this empty page, the empty page remains. So Adi Shankara says, remove the forms and pure space remains. So when it comes to our personality and the mind's life and our psychology, it's as if Adi Shankara, this yogi and liberated enlightened yogi, is saying, if your sense of self is lines drawn on the empty page of universal presence, of this energy, right, of this universal energy, so when all the lines, all the ways you have animated as a person to yourself, you realize, again, they're like lines on an empty page, that is the omnipresent self. And I would say that is true non-dualism. There's a story of Subhuti, which was Buddha's disciple, one of Buddha's disciples. And Subhuti goes and sits under, he was one of like Buddha's good, very wise disciples, you know, as if he had understood what Buddha was saying quickly. And so Subhuti goes and sits by this tree to meditate alone in the forest, and suddenly he's in his meditation and his eyes open and he notices something is falling, right? So it's as if his eyes are closed, something hits him from the top of the tree, stuff are falling. He opens his eyes and he sees there are blossoms. Weird. Endless blossoms are falling from the tree over him. And suddenly a voice from the sky or the moment just shouts at him and says, "We are the gods and we thank you for your discourse on emptiness." And Subhuti is just there with these blossoms falling and he's like, "I didn't give a discourse on emptiness." And the voice of the gods from the sky says, "We didn't hear a discourse on emptiness. You didn't give a discourse on emptiness." That is true emptiness. That is the teaching. So that means non-duality. If you're someone you are aiming towards non-duality, but you are identifying with it, like you can say I'm non-dual and all this, like it's as if you haven't understood it, right? Because the omnipresent self has no reason to be a self when it is literally everything. That means if we were a being that was the whole universe, there's no reason to be just an individual part of it. So we could be like a collective being that became individual to itself and it forgot that it was collective first. Where I was saying earlier, it's like two kinds of algorithms. We find collective becoming individual, then individual remembering it's collective, or individual becoming collective, remembering it's an individual. In the outer realms, I think it's ICI. In the inner realms, it's CIC. Adi Shankara says, all the manifested world of things and beings are projected by imagination upon the substratum, which is the eternal, all-pervading Vishnu, whose nature is existence-intelligence, just as the different ornaments are all made out of the same gold. Yeah, Vishnu is the maintainer of the universe. So you know what it is? I would say this is something personal I'll share about my own inner realm metaphysics, peculiar to the being I am. I feel this world is a simulation from three higher dimensional beings staring at the same thing at the same time. And I'm saying this as a way of a narrative, on a narrative value, but what I'm saying, even though I'm saying beings, it's not that they're beings we can comprehend or they can be beings to us. I'm just saying three different dimensions have found an intersection, and this intersection creates a temporality which then becomes an eternal view. So three gods are creating an ability for all existence to become infinite. And of course, this is just a manner of speech. Our inner realms means there's a secret to the world that only we can see with our eyes. And our outer realms means there's a secret to the world that nobody just alone in their inner realms can see. Right? I realized, okay, what makes sense more about intelligence? One human being just going towards intelligence, or does it make sense that the whole, it's as if the spaceship we're in is updating? As Buckminster Fuller, Marshall McLuhan, these great speakers and minds of our realm, as they said, spaceship Earth. We are like on a spaceship, but instead of being inside the planet, we are on it. You know? Imagine a giant spherical spaceship, but we're living on the outside, and it's as if aliens are like, oh my god, look at these human beings, they didn't even find the inner Earth yet. Yeah. And of course, I'm being playful here. Adi Shankara says, thus one should know oneself to be the nature of existence dash consciousness dash bliss. Satchidananda. Adi Shankara says, but the jiva, in brackets living being, is endowed with ego and his knowledge is limited, whereas Ishwar is without ego and is omniscient. Well, I would say that's like how I perceive the advanced communicator to be the advanced communication of the universal sector. So the advanced communicator is not a human being, it's an advanced symbiosis or rhythmic abidance with the communication of the universal sector. So we are like as multidimensional beings riding the waves of the nature of the realm we find ourselves in. Right? And if this realm is alive and multidimensional, that would mean that there is many Earths in one Earth. That means it could be the case that we don't see it, but this one planet of ours houses endless dimensions of parallel human civilizations, building civilizations. So it could be that some person sitting in a park bench suddenly getting a feeling, getting a strange goosebump feeling and getting in their inner realm, seeing like cyborgs walking around in a mechanical society that's blind, post-apocalyptic. That's like not now, but where did that come from? Right? So so do you see what I mean? It's like we're realizing it's way more multidimensional, and the ancient mystics were saying all this multidimensionality is like on an empty page. So if you understand the empty page, you already know where all multidimensionality is and is leading. So we have to have we have to have a freedom of the human psychology, like the empty piece of paper that is not disturbed by what it has written and what the world has written on it. Like, it's not just like the parents of the child just spoon feed the child food, right? The whole society and everything the eyes of the human being get exposed to are like spoon feeding it information or ways the world happens, to a point where there was this UFC fighter on the Joe Rogan podcast, and this was an incredible, I mean, of course Joe Rogan is a giant, but like in his podcast there was this UFC fighter who was bullied by some messed up kid, like this scarred kid or something, some damaged kid in school when he was young, right, in the school bus. That kid was bullied. He became a UFC fighter. He went back to his hometown, and there was a beggar outside, like he's driving, and there was a beggar, and the beggar calls him, like just is asking him to bring down his window, and he suddenly sees it's the guy who bullied him when he was young. Right? So the kid who got bullied became a UFC fighter. The person who was doing the bullying came to that karmic outcome. As if it was too much disharmony inputted into the moment. I mean, like, automatically that, like, common sense will tell you keep inputting disharmony, you'll become disharmonious into the simulation of the realm. But anyways, so what happens is that this UFC fighter goes and he doesn't behave the same way. There seems to be, I don't know, a fragment of compassion in his mind, and he, in some sense, I don't know, helps the guy out and tells him come, like he helps the guy's life and brings him out of that. Like somebody who was an enemy to him, he became a friend to now. You know, that's I would say that's advancement. So, but he was saying something. I mean, of course, there was anyways, the episode is going to give you a different impression as well. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is the UFC fighter said something incredible. He said he realized that kid who was bullying him, his father would beat the shit out of him, pretty much. Right? So that kid had no other way to know to communicate. Right? That it was as if, like, how do human beings behave one another? Beat the shit out of each other. Right? If the parent's beating the shit out of a young kid who's trying to make sense of the world. Right? And it could be that on one level it does give the kid thicker skin if he overcomes it, but if the kid can't overcome that intensity at a young age, it bruises the psychological development to some degree. That means it's like somebody has to come and pull that kitten out of the box to show it can have a new life, you know what I mean? So it becomes that kind of situation where you're uncaging a cage that was only there because the person didn't know what other type of way the moment could have moved. This is why compassion is the sign of the highest intelligence, because as if the being knows there is another way, it's just maybe we don't know it now. So you become compassionate to how yourself is existing in the world and how the world is existing to yourself. When you care for how the world is existing to you, you find honor, right? When you care for how the self you exists in the world, you find passion, you know. So if we could alchemically change selfishness into passion and corrupt systems advancement is assured. Advancement is pretty much build so many backup systems the civilization can't fail. Like, it's a hilarious approach, but I think it's gonna work. Pretty much if 8 billion human beings build system, like, let me tell you, because the nature of a backup system is like when the child falls on the bike, the parents that come and help it up is the backup system. Now imagine we had an advanced civilization that was the backup system, right? So when a member of the human being fell, immediately the advanced civilization is like a human being has decided to go into realms of dishonor. Why? right? So advanced communicators would come and speak to that human being. Why are you choosing the efficient outcome, right? So it would be like I'm saying that it's just I could totally see communication being the portal to the next great inner realm shift of our species. Communication is a technology. It is our way beyond the inner atmosphere. It's as important as rocket science in the outer realms. Excuse me, guys. I was talking and this was on, so excuse me. This was on mute and I was talking. So I'm gonna read the last remaining quotes from Adi Shankara. He says, "The witness of the three states of consciousness, waking, dream, and deep sleep of the nature of existence, consciousness - bliss, is the self." And then Adi Shankara says, "Who but the Atman is capable of removing the bonds of ignorance, passion, and self-interested action?" That means our free will is the biggest clue of how we can remember we are freedom before freedom was a concept, right? So it's like the surpassing of intelligence, as if the mystics and yogis found a way not to become immortal, but they found a way to get the fear of the mortality to not nullify, but to see more, which it's as if when the soul is here, that means it's like a response to the person's view of why am I here, right? It's as if some energy is moving. So Atman is the source, so the mover of the moment, the inspiration of how the attention moves in the moment is the Atman. That means it doesn't matter if it's a body, it's a mind. What's moving the mind, that's moving the body, is considered a Vedic thought Atman. And so Adi Shankara, his wisdom goes beyond. And I will read one quote from Vyasa, Rishi Vyasa. He says, "Fate and free will are equally powerful forces, but I consider free will to be more important, as it is your free will that determines your fate." So our free will is the unknown moving the known, which then it becomes like the will. You know, it's as if it's the freedom of the will is like in your mind. Let's say a person is on an airplane and the air hostess asks, "Do you want apple juice or orange juice?" Right? So it's as if what causes the ability to decide, right? So free will determines what the taste of the free decision is going to be, the aftermath of the decision is going to be. So it's like studying the self, trying to find the true self was another way of saying we wanted to see the pure free will. And personally, in my school of thought, I say that it goes beyond language. So I'm done treating language as if it's everything. It's like there's definitely more behind our eyes. It's as if the eyes of our eyes are beyond these eyes. So, to come to the conclusion that there's this ultimate witness, and to even see this clock as a metaphor of the free will. You see the person, the statue, has an hourglass behind it, as if man is in a temporal realm, but those two kids in like the boat, that's free will changing time, changing the meaning of time, right? It's positioning to the self. It's as if we need moonlight at night to see, and the moon needs sunlight to be, you know? That means it's like the moon is like a mirror. The moon is like a mirror, yeah. At night, at least. Reflecting the sun. It's as if the moon and the sun, out of all the celestial spheres, aside from gravitational influence, are the only two giant spherical objects that care for the giant spherical object we're on. The moon is like the ally of the earth. Can you imagine, like, one night looking at the moon and seeing the whole moon has turned into a face? And that face is smiling, and for the first time in history books, the moon smiled on this date. Historians are going crazy, right? Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. When it comes to emotions becoming personality, it's the awareness of the pen moving the ink. So 3 dimensions, the empty space, the ink of the pen, which is matter, and then what is moving matter, which is what is holding the ink, the pen, in a different dimension, completely vertical dimension than the horizontal dimension. So it's like vertical ink on a horizontal empty paper is a metaphor for how the story of the world is in an emergence to itself. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. I'll be on Discord for those interested, and if you care for nature, please care for my Patreon too. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I'll see you on Discord. Namaste.